Hi, Monday, 1 o'clock. Here we are, another week. What a week last week was, hey, for everyone in retail. Some kind of, you can tell by my crazy hair. Really enjoyed last week's, talking of last week, chat on here with Adrian, ex-VP of creative retail there at Nike. So hopefully everyone enjoyed that. I think it was really great to have someone else apart from me to chat to last week. And there's some future people coming up. So so hopefully getting some more people to come on here and talk about the future of retail and all things engaging in this space for 2021. I think there's, tomorrow is the beginning of vaccines, so there's reason to be what's it called? Cheerful, if that's the word. Looking forward to the future. So, but I think this last week it was exhausting for me. I think obviously ex-Arcadia at some point in my career, but I think just a big kind of thing for retail to kind of learn about Arcadia and Debenhams, although there are some, I see there's some shoots of green, maybe not Philip Green, shoots of House of Fraser, or Frasers as they're now called, for Debenhams, but obviously a lot could happen between now and then. But still, I think major change for the world of retail. And I think that's probably what I wanted to talk about here today, and to kind of get your thoughts, probably more than me just sitting here and talking on retail. Where does it go from here? You know, where does it go, and what's the future hold? What do you think the future is for retail? Where does retail need to learn? Where does physical retail need to go to kind of eliminate any of the doom and gloom and negativity that we've had in our industry for a long time? And I think, you know, we've talked. There's a pivotal moment for retail, physical retail, and really, I think this is it. You know, ultimately, going forward, the role of the store is massively different, and we can see from the likes of Debenhams and Topshop and Miss Selfridge and all of those that the physical store is no longer what it used to be. You know, the brands and the retail environments that haven't moved forward. And I'm not being detrimental to any of those businesses, because I was part of Topshop, Top Man for a long time, and it was an amazing period in my career. And I learned so much. I was involved in so much. I traveled so much. I saw so much. But I just don't think it's taken anything from its period of being probably one of the best stores on the high street, especially Topshop, to where it is now. So it'd be great to get your thoughts in the comments. Ping a comment in the box, and we will openly discuss and engage on here today. I feel less talky today and more to open questions. So please do drop me any thoughts or questions on where is the future of retail, where do we go from here? And I've kind of got a lot of references that I want to share with you, just to reference back to probably a lot of the things that I've been talking about. What week are we on now? Week 9, I think. Look how fancy the banners have got. Like, I'm trying to point and I can't point, but look how fancy my banners have got. So, and the intros and all that. So we're learning each week about the fanciness of this. So let me know where you are, where you're watching from today, where you're in the world, what is happening in your part of the world. So so retail has, as we know, had a massive year, well, or not a massive year, but it's moving fast. The casualties are coming quicker. as well as Debenhams, Topshop and Arcadia. We've obviously had Edinburgh Woolen Mill. We've had restructures at Moss Bros. We've had TM Lewin this year. Jaeger again. So there's the casualties are kind of astronomical on what I'd call the high street, and the number of voids are in shopping centres, and it's kind of detrimental to everything that we're pushing as an industry to make people go out, leave their homes, stop buying online, and engage in the physical world. So it's key now for retailers from my side. And again, like I say, to get your thoughts on it, but from my side, it's key now, pivotal moment for retailers and brands to really refocus their strategy internally. So when I used to work in a retailer, and for a number of retailers, there's this sort of intrinsic disjointedness between digital and physical, and buying and merchandising and marketing. And until those traditional retailers get all of those parts and get them working together, there's going to be this kind of challenge between the digital world and the physical world. So, if you're a non-bricks and mortar traditional retailer, that's not a challenge. You can embrace these pieces. If you look at Missguided, and I know their physical retail hasn't been as successful as probably they wanted, but they could take their model, which was a fast fashion piece, and bring it to life. And they didn't have the challenges of what I'd call a traditional model. So they could be quick, they could be agile, they could be fresh, they could be everything that they are on their social channels and their marketing channels, they could bring to life physically. And I think it's trying to reinvent some of those traditional models where the physical store is not just forming part of the function of just selling clothes. And until those kind of cogs are sort of all turning in the right direction, which for some of these big businesses is going to be a real challenge. If you just look at Arcadia, and from working there, it was a massive ship, like huge ship, like massive, and to even turn it just a tiny little bit was exhausting, but ultimately massively rewarding. So it's not easy, and as we can see, with lack of investment, lack of newness, lack of ideas, lack of innovation, retailers quickly fall off the wayside. And I think just having those conversations last week with Adrian about Nike and how innovative and how forward thinking and how much they constantly are reviewing their physical strategy is where retail for me needs to go. But again, kind of be great to hear your thoughts. Again, if you have a question, please ping it in and we will pick it up as we go along. I'm seeing some here saying hi. Yesterday I saw many, I think I can ping them up on here. There we go. Many shops closing down in Oxford Circus. I'm curious if retail living its biggest downfalls. Yeah, I agree. I think retail's, alongside a pandemic, alongside social unrest, alongside a whole number of things that happen in retail, online shopping, this is a massively challenging period. And I think, it's well documented in all the news. You just have to tell the news about how challenging the retail environment is. And that's why it's now so important for brands to create physical spaces that provide a solution to their consumers' needs. And I'll ping up some examples in the moment that I've put out on LinkedIn in the last couple of weeks. But for me, they really go to highlight it's about curating a content and a engaging space that really drives out. And we stay at week on week, and I've talked this morning in meetings we've had for Wild to some of our clients is that it's all about creating a reason to visit. It's about, engaging with the consumer. It's about driving out emotional connection, tapping into community, and all of those things are intrinsic now to the future of retail. And if you don't do that, if you just carry on with your own, what you've been doing for the last 5, 10, I don't know, like Debenhams, and I, again, really don't want to be detrimental to any business, but Debenhams, what was the purpose of Debenhams? What were they providing that you couldn't get anywhere else? What did Debenhams have? What was its identity? What did it connect with its consumer about? How did it inspire you when you walked in the doors? And I can't answer any of those questions. I can only tell you, and it's really a terrible example, but I'd go to Debenhams with my 2 daughters because it had a public toilet that was a clean and safe, like easy place. I could park outside and go in. I knew that, but I didn't feel inspired when I walked in the building that I didn't get converted to be a shopper. It provided no connection to my senses whatsoever. And I've known some of the visual teams there, and they've done some fantastic things. And like I loved the windows probably 3 or 4 years ago, and they were winning awards for being best windows. But the store environment, it didn't move. It didn't. The physical nature of Debenhams just lost its aspiration. You just have to put it next to Harrods, and I know they're completely different. And the crowds outside Harrods at the weekend, and you have to put it next to Selfridges, and how incredible that is, and to inspire you to visit and play with your like emotive like senses, and you just have to sort of see the disparity between the two, and I think there's purpose for everything. You just have to look at how successful Next is at the moment, because they've really nailed the whole consumer journey piece. The store provides a function against their mail order, against their web shopping, against their digital, and the store has an intrinsic part of that customer journey. The store is there to provide both an operational and a physical purpose, and it's about repurposing the strategy around the physical store. Some other questions here. Have you been surprised by any of the closures? If we look at the brands that recently closed, I can't say I'm surprised. Trends have accelerated so quickly, it's hard to keep up. Yeah, I totally agree. I think some of them I'm not surprised. I think someone like a Topshop, but obviously that's pulled into a bigger Arcadia group, and I'm not, I am surprised. I'm personally surprised, probably not surprised as the bigger for the group, because it's like I said, it's going. You need to move with the time. You need to move with the consumer, and we have built, retail has built, and technology has built an environment that is safe for us to shop 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, from the comfort of our own home. And that's been accelerated by the pandemic, yes. But the retail's demise is not solely, the pandemic is not solely responsible for that. But the acceleration of our move away from physical retail definitely has. People who probably never shopped online are now shopping online. We're understanding that how convenient it is, how quick it is, how it fixes a specific requirement. But I also think, from talking to people and listening to people, we understand that there's a real desire for retail to provide an emotional piece. And you just have to look at, again, clips of people out this weekend. If you look at the news this weekend, London was absolutely packed. I think because of people's desire, one, to go Christmas shopping, two, that they've got money to spend, and three, Christmas is so emotive, like Christmas shopping, you build up to it's an emotional attachment to doing something, and people were so probably pent up to do it. And it goes back to that the play on the senses. I ordered a number of my sort of Christmas shopping pieces from a list for my children at home, and it's been delivered, but I don't feel particularly satisfied, if that even makes any sense, by doing it. I don't feel it until I kind of probably wrap them up and do that. I don't feel very excited. It's been a very process-led set of experiences, and that's not what shopping is. You go out, you engage, you get inspired, you smell things, the music's on. I went to Sainsbury's on Friday. I got excited because they were playing Christmas songs in Sainsbury's, and they had new Christmas mince pies. And like, if I was at home doing that online, ordering my groceries, listening to Christmas songs, it probably wouldn't be as exciting, but that might just be me. So it's kind of got this emotional, and we remember things, I think, as well. We pick up on things. So I'm just looking here at other questions that are pinging in. So I always ramble on and never answer any questions. And will there be a shortage of clothing available to buy if Arcadia and Debenhams disappeared? If not, then what is the problem that you're trying to address? That's interesting. Will be a shortage of clothing available? I don't think so. I think obviously the challenge with that, Debenhams especially, and Arcadia, obviously they're going to, I imagine, some of that business, and obviously looking today at the news, Debenhams is potentially looking like it's going to be bought up. But ultimately, I suppose the challenge was they weren't selling enough product anyway. And I'm not an expert on those kind of bits, but I think what ultimately the failures in those businesses is they didn't move their probably their digital operations. And again, I'm not an expert in how they move digitally, but from what I've read and what I've sort of consumed about those businesses, they didn't think as quickly around their digital applications as probably some of their more agile kind of competitors. But then they just didn't inspire the consumer on a physical level. So but on that, I suppose that's probably where I wanted to share some of these thoughts, and just to kind of give some reference back to the fact there is life in retail, even now, when everyone's saying how negative it is and how it's the end of physical retail and the stores are doomed and all that. You just have to look, and I try and remind myself, and try and we do it here at Wild, we share it back to the team, is to kind of inspire and say, look outside of the traditional retail box, look outside of that white box, look outside of just what's happening, and these things are happening now for some of these stores, and that there's still exciting retail happening. And I'll just share this on here. So you just have to look, and this is Selfridges. I think this is this week. To be honest, this is the Playhouse in Selfridges. It's a multi-sensory space, and I think this is the thought processes, and what I try to explain every week when I come on here is that it's about reinventing space, reutilizing what would traditionally be put product in, pack it higher, open the doors, and expect people to come. And unless you're doing something unique or time limited, or it's a product that people will queue around the block for, there needs to be a reason to visit. And now it's about incorporating things and products and technology that people really want to buy into. So this is featuring things like Xbox, the new Sony PlayStation 5, incorporating kind of mixed reality. So it's a whole space I think it's really slow. Oh, here we go. But it's about creating an engaging environment for the consumer to be part of. And if you're into that product, if you want to learn more about it, then you will go to that space and you will engage in that space. So it's inspiring, it's aspirational, it's engaging, it's educational, and it's fun, and it's on trend and all of those things. But if you look at that sort of space and look at it against probably what traditional retail is, they're miles apart. They're kind of worlds apart to how traditionally even things like gaming and things would be sold. But now it's about inspiring that community, educating them, and making them convert them from people who are probably as well educated about the product from their time reviewing it. If you're into a product, and I do it, I sit and watch YouTube videos and tutorials and all those things before I go and purchase. So I'm already pretty savvy on what I'm looking to buy, and mixing in with the knowledge of the staff. I wrote something the other week about how important the store teams and the individuals that work within the store are for the future of retail. So they will be really kind of important to bring those physical spaces to life. So as well as the inspiring through a creative environment, the future of retail specifically, I feel, lies so as well as in the environment, but in the inspirational people that work in it, because they're the ones that turn you or educate you, inspire you, and all of those. So they're intrinsic to any brand's delivery of their physical retail. So Zara opened this weekend in Bluewater, one of my favorite shopping centres. But I think because it's such a unique environment in itself, it feels very aspirational. But you just have to look at what Zara are doing now with their new store concepts, creating again. It feels elevated. It feels luxurious. It feels very different to probably where they were a few years ago. But it's about making again it feel like an inviting and tactile and environment that you want to be part of. And you feel, I haven't been and I really want to go, but I think it makes you feel special. I can sort of from the photography, it feels like it's a more aspirational visit. You can tell by all the different materials being used, but again, it feels special. I think it does. So if you're a Zara customer, if you're a customer looking for fashion product, if you look at this compared to Debenhams, for example, or even probably some of the top shops, it's got emotion in it. It's got textures. It's got feeling. It's got all of that. You just have to look at this against something probably much more like high end in terms of its luxury, and it will make you feel like you're as special as someone going to Hermes, for example. So another one. This is Colourful Standard in London, recently opened their flagship on Regent Street. But again, how beautiful is that? How colourful is that? How fun is that? It's not packed full of product. It's engaging with the brand. It's engaging with the story of the product, which is all about organic, naturally sourced products. It's about making you feel intrinsic to that story and that visit to that shop. And these are just all examples that have happened recently. This is B-Tube in China. Again, focused on making the product be the hero, making it all about materials, making it about consumer journey. We just have to look at all of these examples and see how far different this is to a traditional retail box. And these are all happening at the moment. So against the kind of world of negativity on retail. This is Kohan in Tokyo. Again, if you look at it, it's all about personality, community, color, texture, flexibility, all of those words that we look at, flexible spaces, just bringing brands to life. And if you look at, again, the personality, and you can see straight away from the environment that it's an engaging and personal space that inspires you to shop. And I think that's what the future of retail is. What's the point of going to an environment that makes you feel uninspired? There isn't, and ultimately you can do that at home through Amazon. Giorgio Armani, Aspen, pop-up environment, but focused on the moment, focused on a time and a place, focused on a collection, focused on a product. It's really focused and really thought out. I love this one. This is something like that in Dubai, which is a curated space of fashion and culture coming together. It's a kind of market space, locally run, locally sourced. It's a mashup of loads of things happening in one environment, but it's, again, playful, fun, community focused on locality. I can keep saying the same things over and over again, but for me, these are all key things that are required if you're going to succeed as a retail business going forward. And they don't all have to involve giant teddies and plants and brickwork. The focus has to be on what's intrinsic to, one, your brand and your brand's brand values, and two, what inspires your consumer. So if you look at Zara, for example, compared to this, they're two completely different examples, but they're focused on what they're trying to deliver for their consumer and how they're trying to inspire them and make them feel special in that environment. Adidas Beijing, which is another one of their focused city stores, like the London store, but again, focused on a community, a locality, to drive out that connection. And goes back to probably what Adrian was talking about last week with Nike, that really focus on a local connection with your consumer. So instead of it being solely about Adidas, this is about Adidas Beijing, products centric to that market, colors, textures, all of that really ties in to that local consumer. So this is a similar concept to London, but a different application. So I think it goes back to that a few weeks ago we talked about clone towns and clone stores and cookie cutter stores and all of that sort of thing. Well, this is how you sort of take a concept and elevate it across multiple touch points globally. Now, this is one of my fave, and this is Blair Cooper's work, who is doing some amazing stuff out in Australia for Noise. And this is Style Runner in Australia. So Blair's done this and another one later on, Subtype. But again, it's about immersing the consumer in all things that brand and that business. So it's about making, one, the product the hero, two, the consumer the intrinsic and make them feel special. And this is a sneaker store, so it doesn't, but it's all about luxury, all about texture, all about lighting. So focusing on what makes the customer feel really special in that environment. And it's not just rows and rows of shoes on a shelf. And you just have to look at what Sports Direct or Flannels or Frasers are doing with any of their new store environments. If you look at Sports Direct 3 years ago compared to where they are now, the move on is incredible, because it's about giving value to the product and adding that to the consumer experience. This is interesting. I think this is another point for the future of retail, really. And I think maybe one topic we can talk about in a future week is what I'd call these destination retail stores. So this is VF's version. So VF, who have got Timberland. So this is a North Face, Timberland, Naparishi, destination store. So this is a multi-brand store. So this is interesting because this is kind of where how Frasers are doing it in the UK. So they're doing multi-brand stores, and Ian, who's does some amazing stuff on LinkedIn, has did amazing sort of visit to there, which was really interesting, to their store in Portsmouth. He's also done a really amazing thing for Nike's, like into their brand and how they've dealt with COVID. So if you ever Ian Scott, so if you catch up with him on LinkedIn, really interesting. But this is RFC 11 in Milan, but it's a multi-brand store. So I think we'll see more of this in retail going forward. This is interesting, where brands sit next to each other, different brands, different consumers, but actually all under a similar tone of voice. And we, whether it's product, fashion, or fashion and accessories, or as in the likes of Frasers, they do sportswear, gaming, bicycles, and it's about bringing all these brands that sort of sit together for the consumer in one space. So I think this is interesting. Kind of, if you look at Selfridges and how they curate their floors and their spaces, it's all around things that would attract to a certain demographic. And I think some of the future of retail is in that, bringing those spaces to life. So this is, for me, a really interesting space, but again, focused on creating an environment that is engaging, unique, forward-thinking, all of those words. And then this is the one I was mentioning. This is Subtype store, another one in Australia and Sydney, another Blair Cooper. But again, look at the use of materials, look at how strong it is in its application, inspiring, in all of those words. This is again a streetwear focused store that is elevated in its appearance. So if we look at all of those, I think there's the learnings from all of those is about creating an environment that makes you want to go and physically interact in it. And in comparison, I was going to put a picture of Debenhams on, but I think it's unfair to some of the teams that work there. If you look at a Debenhams store, it had none of those pieces. It was missing that sort of piece from the jigsaw, as to elevate the experience into something other than just going into a store and product on rails, clothes on tables, and mannequins. That's been the problem with retail in the last few years, and now, as I've said it before, like the days of kind of average are gone. The consumer needs more than average. They want better than better. So it's about delivering what your consumer wants, because there's so many alternatives. They buy it online, but there's so many more alternatives for them to spend their money. And, I think I talked about it a couple of weeks ago. It was like 70% of Gen Y or Gen Z or millennials would want to spend their money on an experience. So that's, the experience is the buzzword at the moment, but ultimately retail of the future has got to provide some kind of experience. And then we've talked about popping it and blowing it out of the water, but pop-ups at the moment, again, it's about creating aspiration, it's about creating time limited moments, it's about doing something completely out of the box thinking, for the likes of Rimowa and Max Mara, who don't want to go and see a giant teddy opening a box, and it's kind of, that's the standout for retail, but it doesn't have to be as blown out of the water as that in its application. So that's kind of me wanting to showcase that there's still life in retail, that there's still really aspirational thought processes in retail, that it's about taking all of that, looking at what's happening in the past, where brands have been successful in the past, in growing their business globally, in delivering really strong retail concepts. It's about taking all that, but now elevating it 110%, and creating an emotional connection to your consumer when they visit your space. I'm just looking as I've rambled on again, talking. I'm not sure. So, who was the previous retail you showed? I'm not sure which one it was, but I can. What I'll do is I can ping the link to the PDF after this thing into my comments, I think, and give you. I'll put some comments in as to which one's which of who they were. What we got here? Gen Z are more focused on not owning physical products. How will this change stores? Yeah, I think this is interesting. I think the piece around physical stores and physical product, I think there is a more focus on owning physical product for a like the days of just buying. We've all kind of reassessed our purchasing. I think we're making more conscious decisions, not only because of finances this year. I think because people have been a bit more concerned about spending, but I think the environmental impact has had a huge and rightly so part to play in our consumerism. So we're not just. I think the decision making is much more considered now, and ultimately that's where everything in the delivery of the store environment, the physical retail, has to be just as considered, because there's so much more gone into someone's purchasing decision than just going out to purchase. And I think that's kind of intrinsic to creating the space that makes people inspired. But it also, I think a couple of weeks ago, we talked about how it has to be in tune to your brand values and what your consumer like what they engage with your brand on. So as well as having a whole marketing strategy or a campaign or a tone of voice around your brand values, and that's obviously what your consumer buys into, or what they relate to. So if you just look at, like, again, reference Nike, for example, the store environment has to tell that story. So there's no point talking about how environmental you are and all that when actually you're not considered that in your store rollout, and you've just got a load of, or even in your window display, or you've just got a load of printed cardboard, printed materials in your window that have not been done sustainable, or they've not been considered. So the consumers are so much more aware now, and I think that's really important to take forward. And I think it's about making stores less about selling product. Ultimately, stores need to sell product, brands need to sell product, retail needs to physically sell. But what I think we're getting to the point is we can purchase at any point in the consumer journey. So I could walk out of a store and on my digital device I could still buy it. So what the store is purpose is alongside being a physical representation of the product, it's a place to inspire and show off product. And you just have to reference back to some of those examples that I put on there, the slideshow. So to put on there. I'm just looking at some other questions. People who have lost their jobs in retail during pandemic, do they have a chance to be back into retail? Or we are in a reality where retail need another decade to stand up again and start to hire back? Yeah, I think it's a challenge. Retail's obviously in a state of flux. I watched a really interesting, I think, discussion with Piers Linney, who was talking about transferable skills. And again, I'm not an expert in workforce skills or anything, but I think there's some real interesting pieces of skills for anyone in retail. I started on the shop floor, so and kind of learn what I do now from shop. I didn't study it. I think I learned it from the understanding how people shop, and I just loved. As soon as I started working in the shop, and I started working at the garden centre, I was 14, so I just loved people shopping and inspiring people to commit to purchase. So, but I think if you're and I talked about it a couple of weeks ago, but if you're a retail, specifically like a creative retail person, or someone who really understands product and can inspire a consumer, there's a massive part for you to play in the future of retail. Now more than ever, retailers need storytellers, for example, who can do the bit that Amazon can't do. Yes, stores can sell product, but and Amazon sells the same product, or a website sells the same product, but they can't inspire you about it. They can't tell you the story. They can't tell how it's made and all of that. So, yeah, it's. I think there's a huge part to play, and although it's a difficult market and people are really facing challenging times, and there's some terrible numbers that come out of sort of closures of stores, and you just had to look at last week. It's awful that some of these skills are needed more than ever, and I know some hugely talented people, even like Arcadia and Debenhams, who would do some incredible things for other brands out there. So yeah, so that's kind of another 45 minutes of me talking away. I think week 9. I think I was gonna. What are we now? It's now 7th of December. So a few more weeks until Christmas. So I think got another 2 weeks now. So I was gonna do one next week on how other industries can learn from retail. So, or vice versa. So sort of things like hospitality, construction, sport. So kind of mainly because that's sort of a piece that we do here at Wild, is we touch across lots of different consumer touch points. And I think it's really interesting to see how retail and some other areas are all starting to merge together. So we're going to talk about that next week, and then probably have a goodbye 2020, the good, the bad, the ugly, sort of the week of the 21st, so just to see us out. And then I probably need to rethink what happens in 2021 after Christmas, and how we keep these going, or whether we keep them going, whether any of you want them to keep them going, because I feel like it's a personal what's it called? What's it called? Like a personal spill. I feel like I have to let it all out on a Monday. So yeah. So hopefully there's some little bits, any snippets or anything that you resonate with. Hopefully it is slightly interesting, and I appreciate everyone's comments and notes and messages that I get afterwards. So I do kind of find them good to just talk, and for you to get anything out of them. So again, if there is anything specific you want to talk about afterwards, do drop me a note. If you do want to get involved, do drop me a note, because last week was good because I didn't have to do so much talking. Anyway, it's been another week, another 45 minutes. So thank you very much, and I will see you next week. See you later.